as I said before, the internet has spoke because no one really knows what on earth's going on. What do we do? Ollie genuinely is a scientist with all this stuff. He knows everything about angles, all of that. I'm just there to fill up sandbags, to be fair.
The way that Bren lands, so perfectly on that landing. What's that like to see in person? To see him nail that so perfectly?
A fluke.
Okay, so the big question, are you guys expecting to rock up again next year and do the same thing again? The title I've got here is Elation or Deflation, and I think we'll get onto that in a bit as to how you feel about the come down after Rampage. But I just need to introduce you. So this is Ben Deakin, best known right now for being one of Brendog's build team, but also very well known in your own right. So I don't really think we need that introduction, but thanks for the chat.
All good, mate. All good. Thank you for having me.
First thing I want to know, what is the Trailblazer Award?
None of us still know, to be honest. We had to ask, and we honestly don't know. I think beforehand there was the equivalent of a Razor Award, which was basically the winner of that award got a Polaris Razor. So all Bren's got is a Trailblazer Award, and it's literally a trophy. Thank you very much. There's no money that comes with it. There's none of that. I think it was sponsored by Samsung, and maybe he won a flip phone or something that he didn't even bother getting. So, yeah. What can I say?
You can't go into an Argos and trade your Trailblazer Award with anything in there then?
Afraid not. No, I'm all of us honestly don't even know what it is. It was almost a bit of a running joke. It's probably something that means, well, if it's the Kelly McGarry Award or something, then there's obviously a bit of sort of pride that comes with it. But the Trailblazer Award, I think it's cheers for turning up, mate. There's a trophy.
Like school sports day.
Exactly. It's well done, mate. Cheers.
To be honest, though, I mean, it looked like an insane few weeks, and also how many times have you been out there before?
God, I think I've been with Brendan. I've gone 4 times. Sam Reynolds once, and Yannick Graneri once, I believe. So yeah, 6 times.
I mean, you guys look like. Go on.
Obviously we try and make it look as fun as possible, but the reality is something very different. When you see all these kids, oh my God, I'd love to go out to Rampage. It's get a shovel and just whack your driveway for 10 days and tell me how fun it is. Obviously we get the rewards towards the end of the week where we see riders hitting stuff for the first time, or obviously your mate's throwing himself off and over a canyon on finals day, and you're like, oh my God, this is surreal to be in this environment. But prior to that, it's just a lot of 6 o'clock in the morning, wake up till, realistically this year, it was I'm not going to bed till 11:30, 12 because I'm editing. So every single day is almost like a 14-hour day at least. So you just think, it goes on, and I don't want sympathy by any means. It's I've thrown myself there to do it. And it was do you know what? This year, we all said it. Let's just try and build up some hype and take viewers along the journey with us, because people don't see how hard it physically is. As I said before, we try and make it as fun as possible. But the reality is it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hand blisters. This is the hottest it's ever been this year. You chat with all the locals and they're like, what on earth? It was, it was 40, 43, 44 degrees quite a lot of the days. So anything in the middle of the day, you just had to get off the hill and just get under a bit of shade for a couple of hours at least before you went back up.
I mean, I know what it's like to do a big shoot day and then have to get back to my room and then ingest all the stuff we filmed and, make sure the cards are uploaded, make sure the batteries are charged. But for you to have to come back and then sit down and do an edit every night, how did you get through that? That must have been exhausting.
It was you get into a routine same with anything though, wasn't it? As far as you'd build on the hill, you'd try and film little snippets, you then get back, download all the footage onto your laptop while we went for dinner, then get back and then edited until whatever time. And luckily the hotel we were staying at, they had a fast internet where the computers were, so it'd be a case of putting on the hard drive, putting the hard drive on their computers because the Wi-Fi was too bad for normal sort of laptop. So it did become a bit of a thing, but it was like a running joke. As I said, I was up till 11:30 majority of night. One night I was up till 12:30, 1 o'clock, just editing before the alarm goes off at 6 again. I think, what on earth am I doing? Let's be honest, it's not like I'm getting the reward from YouTube money, because it doesn't pay. It's purely for the fact of, all I wanted to genuinely do was just build the hype for my mate, to try and get as many eyes on him and us as a collective, to just try and win something. It obviously didn't work, so we've all come back. Going back to your very first question, which I'm sure we'll get into, like, what a great time. But I think it's fair to say, I think we are a little deflated as to, you put all that time and effort aside for, one event, for one run, and it didn't end up the way that maybe we thought it would.
Well, at least we got to see what the food was like at Rampage.
And I only did that because how pissed off Brendan and Ollie got of it. So I'm like, right, I'm running this even more for sure. Oh, you shitty food reviews. Well, 100% I'm doing this on a daily. And what is funny, that is actually a genuine thing, because the very first couple of years that I used to go out there, it was a case of, the riders were allowed to go into the food meal area, and the diggers generally got like a little takeaway doggy bag, and they weren't allowed to sit in the food area. And like over the years, it's like the riders are like, hang on. And then, when you take a step back, you're like, this is such a big show as such now. And then the people that are making your show, you're giving little doggy bags to, and sitting them in the desert somewhere, having your sandwiches. So yeah, like over the years, the food has definitely got better. And actually, as it ramps up towards finals, where all the media crews turn up, all the VIPs, obviously the food ramps up as well. So it is actually quite a valid thing.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, like, you put in such a shift as well. You are like, you're basically manual laborers on the side of a hill in 40-degree heat.
There's no point. We all signed up. We knew what we were getting. At the end of the day, it's just, you're trying to. It's almost like, it sounds so cliche, but it's almost like you're going to war with your mate. At the end of the day, you want the best for your mate, irrelative of other people's agendas and competitions or whatever. At the end of the day, you want to try and make it as safe as possible for Bren, because the last thing we want to do is, he goes there, he has a silly crash because we've skipped something and made it just faster than what we should have. So it's a case of, let's try and make things properly, make it correctly, make sure he's super happy with it, and then carry on. And I must point out, as far as riders, there are some riders, naming no names, who just don't really do that much shift work. They just sit there. Their diggers aren't their mates. They're just employed to be the diggers. Obviously, us three as a collective, we all get on very, very well, and we just want to make the best for everyone. Bren wants to put his fair share of effort and work in, and likewise, me and Ollie want the best for Bren, so he's nice and safe, or as safe as what he can be on that crazy hillside.
I saw your last video that you did. You put out like 2 days ago, and you just had a look down the other side of the hill where all the main lines were running, and like, there's some serious dirt that's been shifted there. But a lot of it's happened in the past, hasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of it. I think that venue was used in 2018, 2019. And one thing you have got to bear in mind, and it's, once again, I'm sort of going to go off on a tangent. As a sort of team of 3 guys, we've built a line from top to bottom with no other help. So every feature we built, we rode, end of. The other teams had shit, because you only get 75 sandbags per team, and it's sort of quite a big thing to have the sandbags out there, because they're great for retaining walls, for big landings, all of that good stuff, because with that dirt the way it is, it really helps hold all the soil in various places. Now, obviously, if you've got a team of three teams sharing a landing, all of a sudden you've got 9 pairs of hands that are all digging, making it a lot quicker. If there's 3 pairs of hands, obviously it's going to take a third of the time, can take a third of the time longer. So you just think, it's just one of those. Like, the other side of the hill, it was the first time this year that we went to see it, and we were like, oh, amazing. But to us, is that Rampage? I don't know. It's the viewer. I think the viewers have made it quite clear on the internet what they want Rampage to be. Obviously, the judges know what they want their Rampage to be. So we can only just do what we do, and if it's good enough, then it is. If it isn't, then then so be it. We set out with a plan. We did the plan. We stuck to the plan, and I guess in a way it might have backfired. It might, but at the same time, we've all come away of it with. I guess Brendan was people's champ. He had 50 at the time of looking. I think it was like 51% of the votes. Well, that's a landslide, isn't it? Landslide victory. You sort of think, well,
I don't know. It feels the stuff that you did, and also all three of you documenting the whole build. It gave a more like human feel to it, and people could like come along for the ride, and it really felt like we were there when we were like watching the finals day, and being like, we know what went into that line, and we don't really know what went into everyone else's line. And I think that's the big thing that set Bren's run apart and set you guys apart. And to me, that is why it ranks so highly amongst all the viewers.
For sure. And honestly, like the amount of messages we all received, like we do. You make these videos with, you see a number and you don't relate that number to actual real people. So when you see everyone messaging you after, like, genuinely, thanks so much for the videos, you guys are a killer team. You're like, wow, it honestly does mean a lot. Certainly when we're all a bit tired, it was like, wow, it really does make a difference. So we were stoked, but obviously from a I guess a monetary value. We went with nothing. We came back with nothing. We didn't aim to try and make any money. We just wanted to try and do as best as what we could. And unfortunately, it's in 4 or 5 judges' hands who don't agree with what we did. So probably the helmet sponsor might not help. Who knows? But
yeah, I mean, there's more than one instance where I feel like a Monster Energy sponsored rider was a bit hard done by at this event.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Bren. I think when you look at sort of the polls and everything else, I don't want to go too much in depth, but Cam Zink won last year with a huge backflip. It was mental. Seeing it in real life, wow, what an effort. Get it. Tom Van Steenbergen, whatever his name is, sends himself a front flip over one of the biggest drops there, and he doesn't get rewarded with a podium. Yes, he gets best trick, granted, but you're just like, wow, like if that goes wrong, it's going very, very wrong. And I think, he's openly said online that what on earth's going on. Like, I think from a rider's point of view, you want to know what's going to score well for everyone, because then they can all build or practice for the main event. You go to a downhill race, you need to be the fastest man down the hill, period. You look at lines, that's going to be a faster line. For this, it's, well, what's going to do better? Is it the bigger tricks off big features? Is it the more gnarly techie stuff? Like the fact that last year's winner did the biggest backflip, on site and get rewarded for it, and then this year one of the riders does the biggest front flip on site and maybe doesn't get rewarded for it. Likewise, you've got people like Simon Godziak who had such an insane run, and you're like, well, why didn't he win? There's so many ifs, buts, maybes, and I think as I said before, the internet has spoke, because no one really knows what on earth's going on. At the end of the day, from our personal point of view, we went out, we had genuinely the best. We always do it. We have the best time just hanging around with each other's company, and then the one thing that ruined it for us was just hearing the result, and then it was like we all went flat, and we're like, what do we do? You go from, certainly when you look at just seeing Brendan's custom bike reminded me where he's got all his various Rampage results, and this year's was his worst ever result he's ever had there, other than the fact that he crashed one year and he didn't even compete. And you think, what, everything he's done, and this is the worst result he's ever got, even though I'd say we've probably spent so much more time and effort on this line. He's done bigger tricks than he's ever done before, and you're like, well, it's judged events. I think just stick with the timing events, and then the time is the time, isn't it?
I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and she said they need to judge it like Eurovision. They need half the judges' scores and then half the viewers' scores.
I think the only downside, because obviously it's something that we have thought about, if you were to just put it as like out to the audience, the only downside with that would be it would be a popularity contest. And obviously from Bren's point of view, I get it, but if you look at Bren's following over, I mean, we didn't even know his name at the start of the week. There's an American guy who first ever Rampage, and you look at his followers. He's got like 10,000 followers on Instagram, and you're like, well, is that fair? You know, at the end of the day, you're judging them for the ride, and opposed to who they are and what followers they've got. But certainly, when you look at how they judge it, I'd say the fairest way that you could judge an event like that is, and it doesn't make great TV, but you have everyone come down that hill, and then you've seen everyone's run and then put them in order, opposed to going, oh, we're not sure who else is coming down this hill, so therefore we better place him there. And then just because we don't know what anyone else is going to bang out in their finals run, you know. And from that point of view, it's like, it's a known fact that, you know, as much as the judges want to defend it, anyone who drops in first or first couple of riders always on paper get low scores, so they've got that buffer room to put other people, you know. So
well, I mean, let's try and not dwell on that too much, because ultimately it was a pretty insane event as a whole. And if we ditch the whole judging side of it, which I think is probably a good idea.
Definitely.
Actually, I'll get back to your course, but like some of the, as you were saying, some of the runs were insane. And the thing that really stood out to me was that canyon gap that Ice-T and T-Mac did over the, I mean, it was a canyon drop, but that thing just looked out of this world.
Yeah, big step down, and you probably sort of might have seen on Ice-T's Insta. If you look at how he rode it out, it was so out of control. Like, and it's only when, you know, we're just stuck to one side of the hill, just building and building. So we didn't actually get a chance to see the run out until later on during the week, and it's like, oh my god, like you can, you know, from a rider's perspective, you can see how it all works. You know, get out that turn, get on the gas slightly. You got a nice pump bump, you get a nice step down. That's great. You make the gap. However, slowing down, you're like, oh my god, you can certainly see why first run the pair of them sort of ditch their bikes, because you've got all this speed and it's a way of managing it on landing. And only when you go over there, you're like, wow, like what a build, what an effort that jump is.
And that 70-footer as well, the Price is Right, I think they called it. Tom van Steenbergen's front flip. Like, what's going on there?
Mad. I mean, I'm never going to hit anything like it, so I've got no comment on it other than, you know, you stand on top and you're just like, wow, fair play. You know, it's so well. That side of the hill is so well built. As far, you know, going back to it, it's very manicured, but it's not the fact that it's manicured. They're still sending themselves to oblivion off it, and you know, it doesn't matter how slope style it is. When do you see a 70-foot front flip in slope style events? You don't. So it's like fair play.
Brendog's run. How much had you pre-planned in terms of from the build perspective beforehand, and did you really know what you were going to be doing on day one that you arrived?
So obviously this is a site we rode in Bren rode in 2018 and 2019. So 2018 was the initial year Brendan got robbed, because he did top to bottom of that track. We still included the rock, and the canyon was just a normal jump. The following year we then obviously did various bits and bobs and included a lip onto the canyon that he flipped. So obviously we knew we were coming back to the same site. When we went to the site, it was always a bit of an ambition where we've already ridden the steep chute twice. And I say we, obviously as a collective. Brendan rode the steep chute. We've hung off ropes off it for 2 years. From a judging perspective, if we did that chute at the bottom again, is it going to look easier because he's already ridden it a couple of times? And actually, Thomason on needed needed a bit of track to connect 2 bits of track that he already had. He asked Brendan if he could use the chute, and we're like, do you know what? We're going to commit to Geordie Lund's line that he never finished in memory of George. You know, it's a big under task that he ended up taking on, and actually that year he never got a chance to finish it. So that we almost thought, in memory of George, we may as well finish George's run for him. And it was one of those where it was like a steep chute in real life, a case of going, oh my god, we're literally trying to find our way down a cliff face. Ollie, me and Bren all spent some time in the ropes just chipping away at this rock, just trying to make it as rideable as possible. And I think all in it was like 2 days on the ropes to try and get it to a standard of going, oh, is it even achievable? And then we went down on the landing, looked at it over and over. So it was a big couple of days. And then when we went to the top, we were like, right, looking at this 10 days of time that we've got to make the track, how can we make this run even better? Sorry, can we pause it? Someone's at the door. Is that right? Sorry, dude. Sorry, mate. Blame the missus. She made sure that I was like had to be in for it.
I'll probably have one in a minute, so it's fine.
All good. Tommy G had Bren's old line. We were like, right, where do we go? And that's when we ended up going to George's line. We spent a good couple of days on the ropes. Got it half looking like you could potentially ride your mountain bike down. And then we were looking elsewhere, sort of thinking, right, how can we really make this run a bit of a banger? So we walked to the top, had a little look at another potential line, because originally we were going to use, what's his name? An American rider, I can't even remember, but he had a big chute at the top, and DJ Brandt. So we were going to use DJ's old line, and when we went there, we were like, do you know what? There's actually a chute round the side that's even gnarlier. Once again, we didn't want to use someone else's line that's already there. Let's go for that. How do we join that to the rock? Because obviously the rock's quite an iconic feature there at Rampage. And then that's when we had the idea of going, what about if we jumped up onto the rock? And it was like, God, poor Brendan throwing himself up a rock, and found a way, did the shoot first, and then we put aside a whole day to basically make this line into the rock. And if we found ourselves with white rock there, so white rock is like the most awful rock to dig because it's just pure chalk. You need a rock bar. You're going to be digging and not getting anywhere. So we put aside a whole day, and it was one of those where we made quite good progress within the morning. We're like, wow, actually we're on to this. Obviously we're going to have to make sure it all works as far as building a lip that won't carry any speed. It's literally a case of getting up onto the rock opposed to rolling around the side. Right, well, let's get on to it. Let's start clearing out the running, which huge boulders that I think we all forgot to film, to be honest, because we all kept getting carried away building. But it was a big morning on the tools as far as moving all these boulders, rocks, just to clear a runway, and then even to get some sort of flat space where we could build this lip. It was a case of a jigsaw of finding big boulders to block holes before the dirt starts flying around. Anyway, cut long story short, whole day, big day, 12 hours on the tools of just digging this takeoff. And then when we dug this takeoff, it was literally like, wow, we've got I think it was like a 9 foot takeoff, and he had to get 12 foot up onto the rock, So when we built that, we were like, wow, we've done our part of ship. It's now a case of Brendan when it comes to testing to do his part.
I was going to say, breaking the top off the rock as well. That seemed like that was a big help.
Oh, that was honestly the dream, because we put aside all this time to make the run in, which was obviously one part of the problem. The second big problem was the fact that we've got this rock with, added extra sort of lumps and bumps, and you want the bike to be fully settled before bouncing off and going down the side of it. So we were going to put aside like a couple of hours just chipping away at this rock, or trying to find a way so we can at least make it flatter. And as Bren was up there, he just ended up chipping a bit, and we got the biggest rock crack all the way around. It was like, you are kidding me. This is the dream. You couldn't ask for anything better. So that, the rock had a big haircut that morning, and it was like, thank God for that. We've done that. And then it was a case of, we don't want to knock too much off, because obviously you want the landing area to be, when I say big, it's not big at all. It was sort of like, just over a handlebar width. So you're almost like, right, you want to give as much landing room as possible. Well, then we ended up just getting a couple of sandbags and just trying to make the landing area as safe as possible, because it's very much the case where if he fell off the side, unfortunately, it's a career-ending injury. If he went left, if he went right, okay, me and Ollie could be there to catch him. So the first time that he went to actually ride in and practice it, me and Ollie had this idea that I'd be the anchor man, Ollie would grab him, I'd grab Ollie, and we'd just pull everyone off to the other side. But actually, how he did it first time, literally got up there, stalled, and I think we're all amazed how well it worked, And there was a bit of lad science that went into it, as far as the lip was there, but it probably wasn't steep enough. And the more we were thinking about it, it's like, do you know what? let's build the lip to be even steeper, so he's literally landing with no speed whatsoever. He can be all nice and controlled before going off the edge, you know.
Let's move down the hill a little bit. So the canyon gap, like we all know it, it's pretty famous. But you're standing there on the landing, and I just, from your perspective on the finals day run, like the way that Bren lands, like so perfectly on that landing, it's, I just can't get my head around the idea of a backflip and then it's like that close to coming up short, but he just lands it perfectly. And like, what's that like to see in person? Like to see him nail that so perfectly.
A fluke. The problem was practice, that morning he overshot it twice, and none of it, you know, even that night we were like, take away the scores, at the end of the day it's taking out your thing, but you've come here with a couple of things in mind to tick off, and you've done it perfectly. You've literally landed the canyon jump to the tee, absolutely perfect. You, first thing in the morning, you over jumped it twice, and then it's like, you know, poor Bren, like, and rightly so, it's not like a downhill race where you go to a downhill race, you're going to be nervous, you're going to think about lines. You can ride a downhill track if you really wanted to at 70%. Rampage, you've got to hit it 100%, because if you don't, it's going to end in tears very, very rapidly. And, you know, you sort of saw what happened to Cam Zink and some of the other riders over the years. It's no joke. If you crash there, it's a hospital job. It's potentially an air ambulance, helicopter out of sight. So when he landed it absolutely perfect, you're trying to contain it all in because you want to go absolutely crazy, but then you've remembered that he still hasn't completed the run. He's still got a chute that wants to get. Geordie's chute is still like, if that was anywhere at a bike park, you'd have the whole car park looking to see this nutter riding down the loosest, gnarliest thing. Yet he's just done a loosest, gnarliest thing 4 times over before he's even got to it, you know. So it was a case of, right, compose yourself. And then when he did the shoot, it was like, oh my god, what a run. And he's just got to do one more thing, which is the trick jump at the bottom, and then that's that. He's on his way to the finish. But to see it in real life, it was like, that was the one thing that kept him up at night, and that was the one thing that he absolutely nailed. So we're absolutely buzzing for him.
Is there a reason that you guys stand there on the finals day? Is it just because it's the best view, or are you there because it's the highest consequence?
It literally is tradition, where in our heads, the first time he tried it, we always thought that he might case and fall back. So it's like, it's become almost a tradition once again that if we did case it, we'd just be grabbing a wheel or grabbing anything. And obviously over the years, it's just become a tradition now where first time where he's going for anything crazy. That's why you probably won't see him hitting anything for the first time, certainly unless Ollie's there, because Ollie genuinely is a scientist with all this stuff. Like, he knows everything about angles, all of that. I'm just there to fill up sandbags, to be fair. So it's really cool to see how they both work together, and just like anything like that. I think Bren only likes hitting stuff if me and Ollie are there to advise him. Not that I'm going to be sending myself off the same jump, but you've got an idea, you ride, you've got an idea what works and what doesn't. You know, if we go back to last year, you know, I wouldn't hit these things, but he's asking me about this, that, and the other, and you've got enough experience over the years to go, that works, that doesn't work. And you know, when he was dropping in for practice last year, it's like, don't even bother, dude. It's too windy. Like, what's the point in having a silly crash on something that you know you can hit? Just wait till the weather's better, and you know you're going to be fine.
The finals day as well, that it looked pretty windy and also dusty as hell. Like, it looks super loose.
So the problem you've got on actual finals day is it's really good over the years. We used to go up with camelbacks to water everything. Now they've actually got the hoses that run all the way up to finals day. So I think it's a natural spring. They pump water up to the top. There's water that's sort of gravity fed all the way down. So the pressure's really good. They've got the pumps that allow you to have, water pretty much 80% of the hill covered. So you get the dirt there is almost like quite a sandy, stony dirt. So when you get the water in, it literally turns it to cement. So you build something, you put the water on, it's real hard pack and it's really good. The problem you've got is they pull all the hoses out for finals day. I guess from a look point of view, it doesn't look as natural if there's loads of black hoses running down the hill. So they take all the hoses away, but the problem with that, obviously everything dries up really quick. So it's a case of just making sure that each one of the key sections of that trail has got various water sources for certainly for finals day, just to make sure. And you think from a braking point of view, for his first shoot, that is one thing where you wanted him to have full control. If that was loose and dusty, the last thing you need is him to lose control prior to going into that horrible shoot. So that was one thing that in the morning we absolutely drenched ready, so it had like an hour or so of baking, so when he came down, hopefully, fingers crossed, it was just slightly tacky, if you could call that a word in the desert.
You're talking about like behind the scenes things going on. Like what do we not get to see on camera? Like, is it just a bit mad, a bit behind the scenes? I know, like at a World Cup, for example, there's so much going on that you don't see on camera, and there's cameras everywhere. There's wiring running down the hillside. There's cables everywhere. Is it a similar setup there?
No, if anything, it's like it's almost nicer when there's no one around. So in the build up to it, I know we're slightly different because we're on the other side of the hill, but all we see for the first 8 days is just ourselves, other than going down for lunch and seeing some of the other riders, the diggers. It's like we love it, actually. It's a case of just real chilled out. We didn't even have a radio this year. We're just talking absolute shit to each other for 8 days. So it's quite good. And then it's almost like the travelling circus comes into town, and then in a way it probably gets more dangerous for the riders, because you've got all these media guys who maybe don't really, they're amazing photographers, but they probably don't know anything about biking. So all of a sudden they're walking up takeoffs, they're walking down landings, and your job role as a digger, you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake, like why are you standing on the landing? Like, obviously you wouldn't, it's trail etiquette, yes, but actually there is a reasoning for it, that if you start standing on takeoffs and lips and all the rest of it out there, it just crumbles and it makes it more dangerous. So it almost becomes a bit more of a problem as the weeks go on. The more media guys come in and all the rest of it, and then there's not really a behind the scenes. Like, the behind the scenes is literally 3 blokes digging in a desert, just talking absolute rubbish to if I go to the woods with my local mates, where we just say it's same, but you're just on a hillside moaning about the heat and the temperature, and then towards finals day is when all these big broadcasting teams come in, the big lorry with loads of cables come in, you've got helicopters as medics, and it's almost like, wow, this stuff's really getting real now, So there's not really, I wouldn't say there's any sort of gossip or anything from that perspective. It's just, there's 3 mates, and all that happens is that the bigger the show gets towards the end of the week, the more riffraff that turns up with more media, more better food, just still, just like any form of production, I guess.
Or you mean Rue and Seeger turn up and then they ramp it up?
That's it, yeah. I mean, Siegs definitely ramps it up. Rue is literally the professor. Like, his camera skills are I've never known anyone as good as Rue Fowler. Like, what an absolute boss. And you wouldn't even know he's there. He gets all these snaps, and you look at him, you're like, how on earth did you get that? Like, amazing, really cool.
I've only worked with Rue once before, and he just moves around the place. You don't really see he's even there. He's kind of quiet, and then like he just sort of, you see these insane images and these angles that he gets that most people never even think of, and the way he understands light in a way that many people don't, I think, and I think that's a hell of a talent. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was just how Bren felt after it, like how you guys felt after the event, because like any of the shots I saw of Bren, he just had his head in his hands and he looked really dejected afterwards. Like, is that something that it's just in the moment you're feeling pretty shit about that, and then you kind of get over it? I
guess, like, I mean, Bren's sort of quite hard wearing. He just faces the music. He's had, let's be honest, it's happened. I probably get more gutted than what he does. He's had maybe three times where he's legitimately probably should have done better than what he has done, and the public has spoken. And this year, out of all of them, where I think it's fair to say this was always going to be his last, let's end on a high, and it turns out to be one of his worst results. And you think, well, it's out of our hands. He's set out to do everything that he's done. He's accomplished everything that he set out to do, but he doesn't really get rewarded for it. And as a mate, you want your best for your mate, and unfortunately it didn't work out. And even from a selfish point of view, me and Ollie were obviously the Diggers Awards. We were out on that hill more so than any other team, almost guaranteed. And to the point where other teams looked at us, we're like, wow, have you guys come back from war? Because we were literally cakes, and obviously Ollie had that nosebleed. And it's like we do all that time and effort digging in the desert with no reward, and it's like not like we're not there to get rewards. We're there because of our mate, and genuinely we've had the best time. It's like we didn't start to go to Rampage to be like, oh well, we going there to win stuff. We're literally there to support each other and have fun. But obviously it would have been nice, and you hear the public opinion after, you just sort of think, oh, what if, what could have been. So
The thing that I find strange, and I've been on trips on bike shoots and spent all that time around bikes and never like turned a pedal myself. Like it's kind of a weird environment to be in because you're just surrounded by bikes, but you're not there to ride. And that's another aspect that's kind of weird. And like you say, you've gone all that way. It's nice to have some reward for that time you spent there, especially that time you spent off a bike. I bet the first thing you did when you got back was like, I need to go for a ride.
I'll be honest. The first thing I did when I get back, I don't want to do any exercise because it's one of those where it's so physical. Once going back to saying what we talked about earlier, it's like kids don't see how physical that place is. You're literally digging from, you get realistically the time you get up, blah blah blah. You're on the hillside for probably 8 o'clock. You're digging from 8 o'clock till 7 o'clock every single day, minus a couple of breaks within the day. And you think the last thing I want to do when I get home is just go and, especially when I get back to bloody England, like just raining all the time. It's like the last thing I want to do right now is just go and ride my bike. We were quite lucky that this year, at the start of the trip, we ended up riding in Colorado for a couple of days, which was quite nice. And then we had a day off, a sort of glorified rest day where we actually went riding anyway, but your body's just in shutdown then anyway because you've dug every single day for 4 days, 5 days prior to that rest day, and then you're going back to more digging the following day. So you don't want to, spend yourself too much by riding. But we got a bit of riding in, and at the end of the trip, we were wanting to do another ride, but just time didn't allow with various things, and obviously going to Brendan's Death Grip 2 premiere in Laguna Beach was quite good, so we didn't really get a chance to do much riding. It was more the right hand drinking hand to go over more than the riding hand. But we had fun. Well, great way to finish the trip.
Okay, so the big question: are you guys expecting to rock up again next year and do the same thing again?
Obviously, it's not for me to answer, but I personally feel like that's it. We've put everything into this year's and last year's, and I just think you listen to the internet and you think, what for what? It's not, as we said earlier, it's not like a downhill run where you can ride at 80%. He's literally got to ride 100%. He's a dad of 2 kids. What for what? It's like, and I think his wife's pretty adamant that he's not going back. I mean, as a journey, wow, what a journey with two of my closest mates. We had an epic time, and hopefully it's not the end of us going back, but from a competition point of view, it probably is. So if it means that we go back next year and just have a laugh and just watch the finalists, then great. I mean, I personally would love him to go again, just so we can just take it all in. But I think that's it.
We got plenty more events closer to home. There's a hard line round the corner that's always open.
Yeah, it's just not the same, though, is it? Like I feel like what's cool is, even though it's Bren doing all the tricks and the jumps, it's as a sort of team we're all contributing in one way or another. And let's say there was a UK version of Rampage. I'm not that fussed about being in wellies digging in a Welsh hillside. I'd rather be in a Utah desert, seeing all of that.
I've heard rumours about hard lines happening potentially elsewhere. I don't know if you have. There's nothing I can say on camera, but it's maybe a hard line in a warmer climate or somewhere a bit drier might be a better option.
You can see it as a series. Let's be honest. You can sort of see the hype that it builds. It's at the end of the day, it's not a judged event. It's something that works well, and you can see as a business, it's great for the riders and great for TV. It almost, the way that downhill is now, you feel a bit sorry for the guys who are teetering sort of 30th to 40th. They're not getting screen time. They're finding it very hard to get bike sponsors, and you can't. A few people are. Don't get me wrong. A few people are influencers and racers, but there's very few of them. If you look at an out and out racer, they're just focused on their A game, practicing, training. And if you think from a sponsor's point of view, if you're not quite cutting the mustard, are they going to carry on getting supported? The reality is probably no. So you do feel for them. So something like Hardline, where riders can get screen time, they can obviously go to their sponsors and go, right, this is the audience that I'm expecting to attract, but whilst doing this event, then it makes sense.
That's cool. Good place to end it, I think. But I've actually got loads of questions like prepared for a longer podcast with you, but I think we'll save that for another day. Maybe we'll do that in the Alps next year. How about that?
All right, done. I like the idea of that, dude. Perfect.
And finally, one thing we need to mention: Lad Science t-shirts, merch. Where can people find that? Because you've got to come away with something. So maybe selling some t-shirts might be a
Yes. Well, the Lad Science was a bit of a joke, and you can find that on Brendan's website, brendanfairclough.co.uk, I believe, and obviously all his various t-shirts are available with the Lad Science colours, options, all of that good stuff. And obviously we're going to push it more because we're getting a cut. So far, I think we can just about afford a Mars bar and a meal deal each, but we're getting there.
nice one. Right. Cheers, Deaks. We'll catch up again soon.
Awesome, mate. Legend.